It's football Sunday. Nobody want to see nobody else in the NFL play except the Eagles and the Giants.
It's New York, Philly. I mean, that's how you got to look at it.
These teams hate each other. The fans hate each other.
We're not too fond of the Giants.
Top 10 things you love about the Giants-Eagles rivalry. This will be fun.
Works his tail off. 5 seconds left. 4, you dreaming? 3, 4. That was 3. 7, 2, rushes 2 weeks. 4, 1. I just hate them dudes. I hate McNabb. I hate Runyon. I hate all of them.
The rivalry is clearly defined by hate. I mean, this is what makes this so great. Hate.
Let all us against the big bad Giants.
Just remembered hating those guys and those smug fans. I just hated everything about growing up there.
You know there's going to be a rumble.
No, that's right.
When I go against Hugh Douglas, it was, I mean, you hated him. I wanted to play him Wednesday in the parking lot. I mean, you were ready to just get into a fist fight.
Anytime it's a Giants game, you know it's going to be a big game.
To just dislike game day that you had for the Giants and they had for us was a beautiful thing. I loved it.
You loving it? You loving it?
The Eagles and Giants have loved to hate each other since they first met in 1933. But the rivalry has more than longevity going for it.
You've got history, tradition, and proximity.
Look at the Giants and the Eagles. They're what, 90 miles apart, right down the turnpike.
Proximity breeds contempt. They're very similar in terms of temperament. The people who live there, they're very passionate about sports.
Your wife's in divorce court, straight ahead.
It was kind of like a college rivalry that was right down the street.
I ain't never seen a city or a team so full of hoes.
We've compiled a list of games, moments, and matchups. This is the top 10 things we love about the Eagles-Giants rivalry.
At number 10, Ryan Westbrook's game-winning return.
That's got to be higher. How is that not higher? That saved an entire season.
Here comes Westbrook. He's got a lead.
Some of those moments are higher than that punt return. Goodness gracious, the game-winning punt return. We gotta, whoever made that list, got to readjust it a little bit.
After 58 minutes, the Eagles were staring at a 2-4 start to their 2003 season.
There was absolutely no way the Eagles had any business winning that game.
It was ridiculous. We had dominated the game so much, but we couldn't pull away from them.
Offensive, we couldn't do anything against that defense the whole day.
With 1:34 left in the game, the Giants punted from midfield.
The one thing you cannot do is put the ball in Brian Westbrook's hands because he's the playmaker on the team.
Jeff Eagles will kick, and you know it'll be a directional kick attempt.
In my mind, I'm thinking catch the ball, try to get some positive yards, get out of bounds. You know, let's move to our offensive series.
It was almost like the football gods touched the Eagles.
You could see it materializing as the plays unfold. Like, why are you kicking the ball to him? Well, I mean, why are you not hitting that thing out of bounds?
Luckily enough, the ball kind of bounced right into my hands, and you're saying, just make a play. And then you're saying, okay, you got an opportunity to make a big play. I'm seeing guys flying past me, and I'm seeing these green jerseys blocking.
He's gone! Touchdown! Brian Westbrook, 84 yards!
First thing I do is I look around for the flag because you never know. We're in New York, you know, you just never know.
No penalty flags! I don't believe it!
And the sound, just the sound in Giant Stadium, almost a haunting buzz, like, what just happened?
The crowd was silent.
Just becomes one of the most legendary moments in Eagles history.
That particular play, the punt return, really turned our season around.
They were going right in the tank. He ran that back, and all of a sudden they have a great season.
Conversely, he ruined the Giants season. I think that was like a dagger in the heart, and they wound up finishing 4-12 that year.
Why in the world let that football record be returned?
You want me to tell you the backstory? We're getting ready to punt. Our kicker, Jeff Eagles, goes over to our coach and says, all right, coach, I'm just going to kick it out of bounds, and, you know, then our defense is going to stop him and we're going to win the game. Our coach says, what are you talking about? We can cover him. Kick it away to him.
Brian Westbrook has just exploded!
After the game, Coach Fossil goes up to Jeff Eagles and says, hey, why don't you just tell him that you mishit it? And that's one of the reasons why a lot of people had issues with Coach Fossil, because he'd do things like that and throw his own team under the bus.
I would argue that the Brian Westbrook punt return is not 10. If there are 9 plays or moments in this rivalry that are better or more intense than that, I have yet to see them.
It's a beautiful day here in wonderful city of brotherly love, if you want to call it that.
When we return, a little love between Giants and the men they love to sack. The Eagles-Giants rivalry is made for primetime television.
The big flat at the 10, but throwing the ball across for a touchdown.
The first Monday Night Football game for both teams came in a head-to-head battle in 1970. The 1-7 Eagles upset the 6-3 Giants. In 2009, the Eagles bid farewell to Old Giant Stadium under the lights in the highest scoring game of the rivalry.
And walking in for a touchdown backwards is Deshaun Jackson.
In 2001, it was a Monday night nail-biter that changed the balance of power in the NFC East.
Caught for a touchdown by James Fresh.
McNabb smiled that night. But 6 years later, the Giants exacted some late-night revenge.
The number 9 thing we love about the Eagles-Giants rivalry. The Giants sacked McNabb 12 times.
The Giants began the 2007 season 0-2, thanks to a defense that gave up 80 points.
The media started out with fire Coughlin, fire the players, let's get rid of everybody.
Tired of taking it, Tom Coughlin's squad decided to dish it out on Philly's Donovan McNabb, sacking him 12 times.
12 times you get sacked in the same game? Yeah, that was pretty much like Easy Pass on the New Jersey Turnpike. Beep, beep, I'm going to get him again. Beep, beep, I got McNabb again.
I'm looking at 5 get up time and time and time and time and time and time again.
This is downright depressing tonight.
One of the worst performances by an offensive line you could possibly imagine.
Winston Justice is a tackle here. Here's Hugh Manura. He just runs right by him.
That was the Winston Justice game.
Ugh, Winston Justice. That poor bastard.
He was thrust into the starting lineup as a fill-in because Trey Thomas was hurt at left tackle.
Thomas hurt. Justice makes his first career start.
Winston is a hard worker, a guy who, when he was able to get that opportunity, I felt confident that Winston was going to be fine.
Poor Winston Justice, OC Umanura just ate him alive. OC had 6 of the 12 sacks. It was like he was just toying with him.
He was just a human turnstile for 60 minutes.
I think by now you would know that Winston Justice by himself cannot block O.C. Umanura.
At halftime, where was the adjustment to say, let's help this guy? This guy's getting killed. That guy couldn't even go get some food at the drive-thru without them throwing the food at him.
Terrible coaching job on my part. We tried to make a few adjustments here and there, and it wasn't working. They completely disrupted our world.
The architect of the beating happened to be a former Eagles coach.
They have their new defensive coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo, dialing up all kinds of crafty blitzes.
Here he is as a linebacker running a blitz up the middle with a stunt.
He's a guy they plucked out of the Eagles coaching staff. He was a linebacker coach under the great Jim Johnson, the defensive coordinator, who was always so instrumental in hurting the Giants.
The way the Giants ended up winning the Super Bowl that year and upsetting the undefeated Patriots to do so was getting pressure on the quarterback. You have to look back at the game where they just crushed McNabb as a blueprint for what they were able to do the rest of the season.
Bittersweet because I love Spaz is my guy. I mean, I love him. To see him go out and win it was a beautiful thing for me. But as far as the Eagles-Giants thing, you're like, man, this is unbelievable. I'm looking at these cats celebrate.
The New York Giants have knocked off the New England Patriots.
As Andy Reid keeps coming up short, knowing that there's a guy under him that ended up making the Giants their arch rivals, pushing them over the top to win the Super Bowl, that can't feel good. It just can't.
The great thing we love about the Eagles-Giants rivalry. LT versus Jaws.
Hey, baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs.
Number 56 was out there to do one thing. He was there to take your quarterback's head off.
LT frequently feasted on Philly's Ron Jaworski.
Jaworski would take one hellacious hit after another from Lawrence Taylor.
You think to yourself, my God, how did the man ever get up? It was almost cruel and unusual punishment.
Sometimes after the games, man, I used to see Jaws, man, with ice bags.
That was his personal tackling dummy. Feels like every time the Giants play the Eagles, he had 4 sacks.
LT came to the league in 1981.
Lawrence Taylor, the rookie out of North Carolina.
And Jaws had just taken his team to the Super Bowl. Polish Rifle still had game left.
Jaworski, he looks, he floats the pass down the far side. The pass is caught, and it's a touchdown.
No matter how much a guy like Ron Jaworski studies Lawrence Taylor, he's not going to be able to get out of the way. It was a perfect match. The guy with feet of concrete versus one of the best pass rushers of all time.
Should have been some sort of handicap. Like, you know, when you're playing flag football and you have to count to 7 Mississippi, they should have had LT do that. That would have made it fair.
Jaworski's this guy that surveyed the field. But for some reason, he always had that head to the left when he played the Giants. It was like a sudden jerk. It was like,
where's LT? Where's LT? Where's LT?
Jaworski literally would start to quiver sometimes when he was calling the signals. That's fear.
No one made a sack look uglier than Ron Jaworski.
All you see is Jaws' helmet going like this.
You coming straight down on him, full head of steam, like that, like a Heisman Trophy.
Ron Jaworski is one of the toughest football players I've ever seen, and nobody really gave him enough credit for being tough.
Ron Jaworski, he does take punishment. I mean, there is a tough guy.
Ron took it like a man. He took a beating and kept getting up. There's no doubt about that. Well, of course, I never felt bad for him. Who we kidding? I mean, hit him again, Lawrence.
In this movie, Jaws was the hunted. Almost 10% of Taylor's career sacks came against number 7.
Jaws had a great line. He said that Lawrence used to be on me so much that people thought my number was 56.
At Lawrence Taylor's Hall of Fame induction, he was presented by his son, and his son thanked Ron Jaworski.
I thank Ron Jaworski for making my father what he is, because without him, he probably would have never broken that sack record.
I laugh every time I see Ron Jaworski. LT! Oh, where is he?
Let's go, Eagles!
I tell you, Lawrence, they call this the city of brotherly love, but it's really a banana republic. Banana republic. That's what it is.
Coming up, Bill Parcells' trips to Philly were no day at the mall. We'll tell you why.
I'll watch them boo our ass. Here we go.
The number 7 thing we love about Eagles versus Giants, a battle of coaching legends.
There was a time when the Giants were coached by Ray Handley, and there was a time when the Eagles were coached by Rich Kotite.
Look at these.
Just kidding. That's a whole nother list.
What a coaching matchup that was.
Thank you.
That's like Noel Landry. Handley Kotite is like sitting on the city bus watching 2 crazy guys fight.
You got the outside guy to the weak side. Number 2.
Kotite may be remembered not so fondly in Philly, but in 2 years against Ray Handley, he went 4-0.
A lot of teams wouldn't have come back from 20-6.
That's probably the only time you can ever say in Rich Kotite's coaching history that he was on the top half of the mismatch.
New York won't even give us the satisfaction that we had the worst coach. You know, you get to an argument, it's like, oh, Handley was worse. No, Kotite was worse. At least give us Kotite.
Kotite Handley didn't rank, but their coaching predecessors come in at number 7.
The real number 7 thing we love about Eagles versus Giants, Bill Parcells versus Buddy Ryan.
2 guys who said what was on their minds.
Hey, Fred, I'm going to tell you, those linemen are standing around, wandering around.
It just added another layer of flavor to what was already a pretty intense rivalry.
Hey, 55. Who you think's got this?
They were perfect for their cities. They were both guys who, their teams didn't back down on the field, but then off the field, you had this extra pump.
I lost a couple of pounds, and I thought I was looking good.
And Buddy had a lot of respect for Parcells, and Parcells had a lot of respect for Buddy, but they wanted to beat each other's brains out.
Your personality, you got it figured out. I ain't got it figured out. I know.
Don't let him bother you. That's all.
It was kind of an arms race, and both of those guys were the ministers of defense.
Showed those folks that we told them to get the hell out of Dodge.
It's my favorite place. It is.
Whenever I think of Parcells and Buddy Ryan, I think of two teams pulling off of the turnpike at a rest stop and literally getting off the buses and just going at it in the parking lot.
The Eagles-Giants rivalry reached a heated pitch in the late 80s. Over a 3-year span between 1988 and 1990, Buddy's Eagles won 5 of 6 against Bill's Giants.
Laterals and running in is Andre Waters for the touchdown.
And Buddy Ryan would come out and say, we know we're going to beat them. They know we're going to beat them. And somehow, they always beat them.
We had the best team in the NFC East, but yet we could not defeat the Eagles for a long period of time. Anything that could happen probably did happen.
The kick is blocked. It's blocked. But it's picked up. Bryce Simmons, I think, bro. And running in for a touchdown. The Eagles win.
I remember the 1990 season when the Giants got off to that 10-0 start, and they had played a game down in Philadelphia.
11-0 Giants. Can't beat it.
The Giants were the undefeated big bad brothers coming down the turnpike.
Just because we're 6-4 and they're 10-0, hey man, we're better than these guys.
The Eagles didn't just beat them. The Eagles crushed them.
Touchdown on the rebound of Calvin Williams.
Keith Byers threw one of the greatest downfield blocks in the history of the National Football League.
It was a decleater. And I'm mad. I want to go fight Keith now. It was personal when it came to the two teams.
Number 89 and a disqualification.
And that's when you kind of knew that Parcells and the Giants, that Philadelphia was sort of in their head.
We didn't do well against them. They knew it, and they rubbed it in our face, too.
This is one of my favorite quotes in NFL history, okay? Mark Bavaro actually admitting he has dreams about murdering Buddy Ryan.
I dreamed of murdering him.
I mean, does that not say it all about this rivalry?
He was a bad person. Ironically, I ended up going and playing for those guys. I don't think anybody said hello to me till around November.
Buddy's Eagles won the battles, but Parcells' Giants won the war.
You felt like they got the better of the Giants, and then here you have the Giants who go off and win the Super Bowl, and you wonder, when is it Philly's turn?
Buddy Ryan could have the skins on the wall as far as saying we beat the Giants a number of times, but as we know, the Eagles never got over the hump there, where the Giants, during all those fierce battles with the Eagles, won 2 Super Bowls.
The good news is we ended up with 2 championships. They ended up with, nothing. Bragging rights that they beat us. That's it.
The number 6 thing we love about Eagles versus Giants. New York's 2006 epic comeback.
I remember sobbing at the end. I remember thinking, how did they blow it?
67,000 people depart in silence. What a comeback.
Eli Manning's fairy tale ending started out more like a horror show.
I feared for the guy's health because they were just scraping up off the ground, and he was taking all these hits. And you're sitting there saying, so how the hell is he going to finish the game?
It was kind of one of those feelings like, all right, is this going to be a blowout?
Touchdown, Dante Stallworth.
I just remember Donovan McNabb under center laughing at our defense because they were up by so much. As soon as things like that happen, you always know that the football gods don't like that.
Beginning of that fourth quarter, the momentum just started to swing a little bit towards them.
Lowers his shoulder, then fumbles it.
And the next thing you know, the ball's just rolling on the ground, and I'm running after it. Tim's running after it. Tim jumps on it in the end zone, and I'm thinking, does that even count?
And Tim Connor falls on it for a touchdown.
Right then, you said, well, something special's happening here. The thing that kind of opened the door for the Giants in that game in the fourth quarter was Brian Westbrook, who'd been a Giant killer, hadn't fumbled in 2 years. He coughed the ball up in the fourth quarter.
Here's a guy, if ever you wanted to salt the game away, you get a ball to Westbrook because he doesn't fumble.
And this could let New York right back in the game.
And I guess that's the way it works in the Eagles-Giants. I mean, they don't play normal games. That's like these quirky games where all of a sudden you think you know what's going to happen, and then sure enough, you don't.
The Eagles still had control of the game until a Trent Cole personal foul with 15 seconds left turned a 50-yard game-tying attempt into a chip shot.
Trent Cole kicked one of our players in the unmentionables.
That's a Leon Lett play. That's not a Trent Cole play.
And just like that, the Giants have come all the way back to tie it at 24.
That was a costly penalty. Costly penalty.
And I would imagine the fans here are stunned.
Heaves it left for Plaxico Burress, who makes the catch for a touchdown!
Eli throws this, basically a desperation bomb to Plaxico Burress, who happens to be a few inches taller than Sheldon Brown. And you're sitting there watching this game going, really? The Giants just won this game? The Eagles weren't the Eagles up 24-7 a minute ago?
What a great job by Eli Manning.
I don't think there's any doubt that it was his coming-of-age game. I'm here. I'm a leader that can bring my team and lead them to victory.
I saw a little bit of New York Giant pride.
I think that was one of our first wins in a long time against the Eagles. So for us to do it in that way was special.
I don't think we even watched the film on that game. It just kind of pissed us off.
This song sucks, boring, we need to update it.
What else makes Michael Strahan cranky? It's big and green, and it's coming up next. The Giants and Eagles hate each other, and here's what we love about it so far.
Number 10, Brian Westbrook burns Big Blue.
If the Giants look in their nightmares, Brian Westbrook always pops up first.
Number 9, the Giants feast on Donovan McNabb.
It was like free lunch all day there.
Number 8, LT takes a bite out of Jaws.
He just destroyed Jaworski. I mean, there's no question about that.
Number 7, Bill Parcells and Buddy Ryan match wits.
Your personality, you got it figured out.
Number 6, Eli Manning's comeback ruffles the Birds' feathers.
I don't think we even watched the film on that game. It just kind of pissed us off.
Coming in at number 5, Strahan versus Runyon.
From 2000 to 2007, Giants defensive end Michael Strahan and Eagles tackle John Runyon waged war in the trenches.
This might be the best pure man-for-man rivalry the NFL has seen in 20 or 30 years.
Genuine dislike between the two.
I tell you right now, you know everybody gonna watch this football put on you, right?
They just love beating the hell out of each other.
You had two guys that were just beasts. Both of them loved the competition.
Strahan was the glitzy, spotlight-loving superstar from New York.
Who's the perfect person to try to neutralize him? John Runyon, 6'6", nasty.
The Eagles signed Runyon in 2000 for the specific reason of matching up with Strahan.
John Runyon is Chewbacca.
Dang, you big and hairy, dude.
He is just vicious to defensive ends.
Every time he got in the stands, he felt like he was going to pancake the guy and make him pay for even thinking about trying to get past him.
John Runyon was kind of dirty. Give him a little jab here or give him a little tug here.
If he's going down, put your hands off and give him a flying elbow.
And that's why he's now a politician. You know, little dirty tricks here and there.
It's not dirty. He just played to the echo of the whistle.
John Runyon was a terrific offensive lineman. Terrific. Michael Strahan kicked his ass every single time.
He beat him, and he beat him a lot. It beat him like a drum.
Well, I'll tell you, Strahan is really having his way with John Runyon.
There were times that Strahan would literally lift this guy who's got 50 pounds on him and throw him to the ground like a WWE wrestling match.
Mike probably had more sacks on me than anybody he faced, so I can do his Hall of Fame speech.
You would assume that Strahan had 10 sacks a game against Runyon every time. But in fact, Runyon gave Strahan fits.
As with any pass rusher, all you have to do is win about 2 of those battles every game, and you're one of the great guys in the game.
I think over time, because they wore each other out so much, they really came to respect each other and I think genuinely like each other.
At the Pro Bowl, they're hanging out with each other all week. You would have thought they were teammates.
What finally won me over at the Pro Bowl, they had a party, and I see this big 6', 7', 8" guy, dirty dancer with his 5-foot wife. And I said, you know what? I love the guy.
When John Runyon ran for Congress, Strahan supported him.
Well, I hear Strahan's getting into politics, so I figured Runyon's the president, Strahan's the vice president. Maybe it's vice versa. Who's going to get out of line with those guys?
I thank you for letting me beat the crap out of you.
The number 4 thing we love about the Eagles-Giants rivalry, Bednarik clobbers Gifford.
As a kid, you remember that hit because it scared you. Wow.
You have a Hall of Famer hitting a Hall of Famer.
It was the hit heard around the world.
Probably most remembered defensive play in NFL history.
They thought Frank Gifford was dead.
There was a person who died at Yankee Stadium that day, had a heart attack, and the Giant players went into the locker room after the game, and there was a stretcher with a sheet over somebody, and Pat Summerall thought that was actually Frank Gifford who died.
You get into that sort of a cannibalistic feeling. All you want to do is go out there and, like I say, you just want to kill somebody.
Chuck Bednarik felt little in common with his rivals to the north.
He hated the Giants. Here's this great two-way player, this tough guy. And the Giants were kind of a little bit of that Broadway. They had that little Hollywood thing going.
Bednarik was just a breathing fire linebacker, and Frank Gifford was the glamour boy of New York.
Stylish striding Giff goes 78 yards.
He was one hell of a football player. He could run, he could catch the ball, he could pass the ball.
Gifford leaps and crossfires a touchdown pass.
He was everything that the Giants stood for at that time, that Madison Avenue image.
And we hated Gifford because he even wrote an article in the New York Times. So we were going to try to kill him.
Concrete Charlie came close to accomplishing the feat in 1960.
Clock is running down. It's about 1.5 minutes to play in the game. Gifford swings out of the backfield. As soon as he caught the ball, I rammed him.
And you could hear it. It was a tremendous shot.
Frank's body just floating through the air and then slamming down on the ground and his head hitting the ground. I thought he was dead.
I knew the game was over. I had no idea where Frank Gifford was. And I said these exact words: "This effing game is over."
Classic Philadelphia, New York dynamic. Bednarik, the tough, gnarled guy with the fingers that are broken, and Gifford, the Hollywood matinee idol, and he goes down. And it was like, okay, here's our moment in the sun. You know, we bought the ticket for Broadway, and you know, we spilled popcorn in their aisles.
I think it's the single most defining play in the history of the Eagles, because ultimately, I think that was the key to the Eagles going on and winning an NFL championship.
Jim Taylor nearly gets loose, but Chuck Bednarik grabs him on the 10, and that's the end of the line.
Gifford suffered a very, very deep concussion that finished him for the rest of the 1960 season and all of the 1961 season. When he came back as a wide receiver, not as a halfback.
I think that hit was so violent and so vicious in nature to a point where a man is knocked out for an entire season. I think that completely embodies and epitomizes Giants Eagles.
Coming up.
Who in their right mind would just pick up the phone and do that?
I'd love to see somebody shove that phone up his...
Ask us which Eagle reached out and touched the Giants. We'll tell you after the break. Before we get back to our countdown of things we love about the Eagles-Giants rivalry, let's take a look at something or someone that didn't make our list.
On the intercom system, they play Michael Jackson's Bad. Doom, 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 doom. And all of a sudden, you see Randall Cunningham doing this. And I'm like, oh boy, he's about to do something.
Now rolling with the football and being flattened at the 10, but throwing the ball to Giles for a touchdown.
Going to make what I thought would be a routine tackle against a guy who turned into Plastic Man.
He jumps. He's in.
I think we're looking at Plastic Man.
Randall Cunningham, to me, disaster. Nightmare.
When he saw Giant Blue, he looked like Joe Montana.
Or Ray Guy. Randall's 91-yard punt at Giant Stadium in 1989 set an Eagles record.
And look at it carry. What a punt.
Anytime you see his old clips, a lot of them are against the Giants.
The number 3 thing we love about the Eagles-Giants rivalry, playoff drama.
To play against them in the playoffs, where really all the chips are in, it's more than a rival.
You gotta love it. Playoff football here at Giant Stadium.
The Eagles and Giants have met 4 times in the playoffs. The first came in 1981 when the Eagles were the defending NFC champs.
Wally Henry had not 1 but 2 misadventures on special teams.
Henry comes up to handle. He's fumbled, and the Giants get the football.
The Giants were up 20-0 before we could blink.
Wally Henry will field it at the 2, drops it, finally picks it up. It's still on the ground, and look out. Could be touchdown Giants. It is.
You feel like you were snake bitten. You're like, oh man, it's gonna be one of those days.
That was a heartbreaking loss for that team.
I thought that game really catapulted the Giants, propelled them to where they would eventually get 5 years later and win a Super Bowl.
The rivals did not meet again in the playoffs until 2000, when the game again turned on an early return, this one to start the game.
Ron Dixon's gonna score!
To me, when Dixon returned that kick, I thought that stunned them.
But this is the best way you can ever imagine to start a football game.
We just knew we were going to go into their stadium and beat them. And now we're down 7 before the game even starts.
And you're thinking, okay, that's it. The game is over. The Eagles have no chance.
It is intercepted by Seahorn. He's got it on the run.
Honestly, we didn't even really respect them that much at that point. Just like, yeah, they're a good team, but when they come to the Meadowlands, we're the big brother.
The script was flipped in 2006, and it was a game-ending play, not a game-starting play, that made the difference.
It's got the distance. It's gone!
It may have been an Eagles win, but it ultimately led to a Giants crowning.
When David Akers kicked that field goal, he nearly cost Tom Coughlin his job.
Management was not happy. And after that season, they called him in and said, you got to change. You got to have a little lighter touch with the players, with the media.
It actually led to the evolution of Coughlin, and then ultimately the next season, the Giants would win the Super Bowl.
The New York Giants have knocked off the New England Patriots.
Come on here today and play football.
When New York made a bid for a repeat, it was their rivals sending a message or leaving a message.
Who'll forget McNabb kicking the Giants' butt in Giant Stadium and then going to the sideline, picking up the phone, rubbing it in.
Boy, that move really ticked a lot of guys off.
I was like, hello, 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 and then I hung up.
We took offense to it, but knowing Donovan, he's just kind of silly.
It was just trying to have fun with the whole situation.
Donovan, you are not E.T. Do not phone home.
Sometimes I don't know what runs through that guy's head.
You can't get Philadelphians and New Yorkers to agree on anything at all. And then we all saw this, and everybody just kind of looked at each other like, wow, that was ridiculous. Donovan uniting people.
Hey, you ain't supposed to eat eagle in America, damn it. It's against the damn law, but we gonna eat it tonight.
Our number 2 moment is on the menu.
Crazy, ridiculous, unforeseen, just nuts end to a football game.
It's one of those rivalries where it just seems like every game is either bizarre, dramatic, or has some memorable twist to it. Strange things happen when these two teams meet.
In 2001, with the Eagles looking to clinch the division, the Giants nearly pulled off a miracle that would have certainly cracked our list had it worked.
And finally tackled at the 5 with no
Soccer Club.
In 1988, it was Clyde Simmons.
Free ball.
With a miracle that did happen.
Picked up by the Eagles. He's in.
10 years before the Simmons play was a fantastic finish that earns the second spot on our countdown.
Number 2 thing we love about the Eagles-Giants rivalry, the miracle at the Meadowlands.
This is the Buster Douglas beating Mike Tyson moment. This should be number 1. How is it not?
Number 1 is the miracle of the Meadowlands.
Should be number 1. Of course it should be number 1.
Herman Edwards play? Way overrated.
How could that possibly not be number 1? I mean, you had to get in that situation the perfect storm.
And the Eagles out of timeouts. We thank our producer, Bob Rowe.
There was a possibility that we could go to the playoffs. We were starting to celebrate. Clock was winding down.
We thought it was over, but it was not. There's 33 seconds to go. They have no timeouts. I just go in there, fall on the ball. I'm not looking for a play. I think I'm going to fall on the ball 3 times.
We were going to shoot a gap. We were just going to try to make anything happen, any kind of mayhem.
Now they go into a tight formation very close to Bizarchik. He's not giving a risk a handoff. Bizarchik takes the ball down at his 17-yard line, and the guys start to mix it up.
Giant coach saw the Eagles pile on him, and for some reason he said, well, I don't want Joe to get hurt.
An offensive coordinator named Bob Gibson called a handoff.
Wait a minute. Here's a free fly. I don't believe it.
The single dumbest thing he has ever done in his life. Take the knee. That's all he had to do.
And Bizarchik fumbles the football. It's picked up by Herman Edwards. 15, 10, 5, touchdown Eagles. I don't believe it.
It was like a gift that just fell out of the sky. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this can't be happening. We're going to win this thing. They're going to lose. I mean, then all hell breaks loose.
I do not believe what has occurred here, ladies and gentlemen. Talk about miracles, folks. I do not believe this one.
I was fortunate enough to be in the right place at the right time. You know, people say it was luck. This is what I know about luck. When you work hard, you get some lucky bounces.
An incredible development.
That was the win in 1978 that really, I think, lifted the Eagles. From that point, they went on and they surged, and they made the playoffs that year for the first time under Vermeil.
Eagles are winners, honey. The Eagles are winners.
2 years later, the Birds were in the Super Bowl.
John McVay has to be the most disappointing loss he's ever come up with as a football coach.
I'm down to about one nightmare a week from that. It was a tough thing to happen. It was tough on the team. It was tough on the ownership.
Yeah, it was a sad day in Giants history.
That game was such a travesty that that was it.
The Giants cleaned house, hired George Young, and changed the course of the franchise.
George Young hired Bill Parcells.
This is why you do all that.
And the Giants went on to become the team of the 80s.
There's still a few Giants fans that are like, that wasn't worth it. I don't care. 2 Super Bowl championships, a decade's worth of success. I don't care. Beat the Eagles. You just had to kneel on the ball.
We number 1, baby. That's what's going to end up, baby. We're going to come out as number 1, baby.
We've reached number 1.
When you do it in somebody else's house and you just hear the silence.
Our top moment with sound is coming up next. Before we reveal what we love the most about the Giants and Eagles rivalry, let's recap the list so far.
Number 10, Ryan Westbrook breaks the Giants' back. He scored! Touchdown! Number 9, Big Blue stomps on Donovan McNabb.
Pretty sure the beatdown was just because these two teams can't stand one another.
Number 8, Joss helps LT to the Hall of Fame.
I thank Ron Jaworski for making my father what he is.
Number 7, Buddy Ryan shows up Bill Parcells.
I don't remember the Giants beating the Eagles a whole lot in that period of time.
Number 6, Eli Manning serves up a comeback. And the Giants have won in overtime. Number 5, it's trench warfare with Strahan and Runyon.
I mean, it's one of those battles that say, bring your brass knuckles tomorrow. I think Stray and Runyon definitely brought their brass knuckles.
Number 4, Chuck Bednarik makes the hit heard around the world.
Probably most remembered defensive play in NFL history.
Number 3, there's no season like the postseason.
Beating your rival in the playoffs makes it extra sweet, especially sticking it to him right at the end.
Number 2, the original Miracle at the Meadowlands.
What I thought about when I saw the ball hit the ground, you better get it on the first bounce. And if you can get it on the first bounce, you got a chance.
And now, the number 1 thing we love about Eagles-Giants.
In Philadelphia, it's known as the Miracle of the Meadowlands Part 2.
He's gonna go!
In New York, it's known as what in the hell is going on here?
The most remarkable win I have ever seen.
I still believe the fumble, for the shock value of it, should be ranked number 1. This should be number 2.
I figured that because his was in high definition, mine was not.
There's a reason that it's called Miracle of the Meadowlands 2, because there was an original.
Well, the sequel's never as good as the original, so I don't know what you guys are doing here. You cannot put the sequel ahead of number 1.
Godfather, that was pretty good.
And The Empire Strikes Back. Some sequels are better. This is one of those times.
It has the original Miracle of the Meadowlands in Deshaun Jackson's punt return, and it has an unbelievable comeback leading up to that moment.
And that should wrap it up.
When you're playing Little League baseball and they get to a mercy rule because one team is smacking the other team so bad by 10 runs and they say, okay, everybody time out, we're going to go to Dairy Queen. They should have taken the entire Eagles team to Dairy Queen.
The Eagles trail by 21 points with 7 minutes left in the game. That's when things went wacky.
Michael Vick just goes crazy, and it arguably is one of the greatest 7 minutes of football ever played in a regular season game.
Oh my goodness, the Eagles are alive.
What a disaster. I don't know if I can say that on here, but you'll bleep it.
That dodged the punt.
Pretty sure you just need to kick the ball out of bounds, right? Just anywhere. 10 rows there, 14 rows there, into the end zone. You just can't kick it within like the 10 yard that Deshaun Jackson stands.
Honestly, I didn't really think he was going to plant it to me.
Gets it away. It's a knuckle.
When the punt went to Deshaun, only bad things could happen, and the worst thing possibly did.
Jackson takes it at the 35, fumbles it, picks it up, looks for running room.
You give him the limelight in the biggest city in the National Football League.
Oh! He's gonna go!
With all the eyes of the country on him, and this guy flourishes in those situations.
In true Eagles-Giants fashion, Jackson took time to enjoy our number 1 moment.
Oh, he's not in the end zone. He's running the 1, and then he goes in. As time expires.
Giant players did not appreciate Jackson's little dance along the end line.
The way this rivalry works is you can't just score a game-winning touchdown. You had to kind of not only put the knife in, you kind of have to twist it a little bit.
It's just too silly. Get in the end zone. Get in the end zone, get the win, get on the bus, and go home.
Go home!
So if I'd have had some wings, I would have probably jumped in from the 20-yard line.
Never mind all the litany of failures that led up to that moment. Tom Coughlin has to take out his anger on his poor rookie punter, Matt Dodge.
He looked like most of the Giants fans in the building, like absolutely shocked.
That look was indescribable.
That face, that classic Coughlin face.
Just adds to the misery here for Tom Coughlin.
It did ruin the Giants' season.
It basically knocked the Giants out of the playoffs.
We own New York!
It basically won the NFC East for the Eagles.
Great job, you.
There's nothing that'll ever top it. There'll never be anything like that in football again, period.
You'd think the Giants would learn. They repeat it almost every year. They had the Miracle at the Meadowlands, then you had Brian Westbrooks, then you had the Miracle at the Meadowlands Part 2. They're running out of names for these things. That's going to start looking like the Super Bowl, where you're just like, you're going to have M's and X's and nobody's going to know what it means.
It seems like the Giants always get the short end of the stick in these games with the Eagles, you know?
The Eagles may have scored the top moments on this list, but the Giants maintained the edge elsewhere.
Our fans would, but I would never ask to see the Eagles trophy case down there in Philadelphia because there's nothing in it.
Come on, the Giants got the Super Bowls. Let us have this, right? If you're an Eagles fan, we get this one thing, okay? The big moments against the Giants.